Good morning. It's almost afternoon, and so far so good. Like my day has started out like pretty productively. I've already exercised, already gone to therapy, already like stretched out, and I've already started to kind of like plan ahead what I will be doing today regarding my novel. It's Monday, it's the first work day of the week, and I have high hopes for how things are going to turn out. Also, today is going to be the first day I will be trying to implement like the little strategy that I had, where I will be trying to finish one chapter. I still not sure whether I go back to the beginning and start there, or if I kind of like try to do this from like where I am at, and try to make this my effort from now on. Because yesterday I was able to actually work my novel for like quite some time, and I was basically adding things here and there. So like maybe I could continue to have this strategy for today if things are kind of like flowing, because basically what I've been doing is that I'm trying to make an effort to focus on the chapter, but if things are not really flowing, I move on. And I think that both of these strategies, they are kind of like they build results, and I don't think necessarily one is right over the other. I just think that I'm whatever works better for me, because I also like don't have to commit to having this strategy for every single day of my life. I can kind of like work and move on a little bit, depending on how things are going. But yeah, so that is kind of like what I'll be doing this afternoon. I'm going to go out for some ice cream. There's like a new McDonald's near my house, and they have like this Stranger Things, combo thing. So I've been thinking about going there and enjoying myself. I don't know if I'm going to go like, because I want to have some ice cream. And I don't know if I go like after lunch, or if I wait, when it's going to be nearer the time I have my Zumba class, and I go there and I ask my dad for a ride, with my Zumba class. I just have to see like what we have to take for us today, because sometimes I have to bring weights, sometimes I have to bring, like this bands that you exercise with. So there's like some stuff that I had to carry, and depending what it is, like would be kind of like an effort to go there and then come back with it. But my focus today is going to be writing. I've been thinking about having more than one stretching session per day. So maybe in the afternoon, if I see that I'm kind of like not flowing, things are not flowing as much, I'm not like doing as well, I will stop and do some more stretching, because I think my goal is to reach my feet by the end of next year. But like there are other things that I would like to do as well. Like I would like to stretch out my legs and in like this position, and to be able to reach my feet with my hands. I mean, naturally I can do this, I'm like full spread out, but I do think that there are some other things that I want to be doing. I'd like to be able to look under my legs, like with my hair, with my legs have like straight out. So just like some things here and there, they're part of the whole experience. And I kind of and like stretching, I think it's good for your head, it's good for your body for sure. But like it is a fun moment that I have with myself. Usually I might be watching something, so that is another. So, and usually when I'm watching something and I'm stretching out, it doesn't feel like I'm wasting time. So like that's pretty good. I'm really happy with that. But basically today my focus will be on writing. I have like some things that I want to do. Besides that, some stuff I have to fix or like redo. So I might be kind of the way that I'm planning things out. So I'm gonna go sit down, I'm gonna write, and then when I feel like I need a little break, I go in and do those things. So this way is I'm going to be the most productive ever. Naturally, like productivity is not my only goal, and also like I no longer have like that very toxic idea of productivity that I used to have when I was a kid and a teenager, a young adult. So I think I can trust myself and my instincts to kind of like guide me, whenever I'm being productive or not. And I think that this is one of those things that I've been mentioned before about like learning from your past experiences, because basically what's been happening is that now I look at myself and the things that I do, and I'm like, okay, so I'm like also like it's okay for me to make mistakes. So if today I struggle and I don't really get to do as much as I want, it's okay. I accept today, and then I make an effort to for the next day, next time, for me not to make the same mistake. Because sometimes like mistakes is a strong word, because sometimes it's just that things just don't work out the way you kind of like want them to. So like I'm trying to do things differently, because trying to do the same expecting different results is madness. I think that quote is attributed to Einstein. Don't know if that was really for him, but like I do have heard that before, and I think it builds like a lot of like there is a lot of like makes sense basically, like that is the case. So basically I want to be like it's okay for me to make mistakes, it's okay for me to not be my best self, like best version of myself today if I learn my lesson and I do better tomorrow. Also like it's okay for for a certain level of instability is kind of like expected. So maybe you will be able to produce a lot today, but tomorrow you're going to struggle. And that's just life. It's just like our brain and the way like things work. So it's okay if like things, they are not really taking off the way they want them to, as long as you kind of like you try something else, try to do something different. And I think that is kind of the best. That is the best case scenario. It's not just like succeeding, it's knowing that you can withstand changes and withstand harsh conditions and all that. Because if you are only doing well because things are always going well for you, like you're not really training, you are honestly inherently a resilient person. And that's pretty much where I want to be. I want to be able to still do things in days that I'm like not doing very well, the days that things are not just like flowing. I still want to succeed. And I think that is pretty doable. And also in some ways, I appreciate and like welcome some levels of not the stress, but of anxiety, because like those are the times you have to prove yourself, to yourself and to the world. Although like in this case, at least in my case, it's mostly just to myself, because the external world is kind of like far away. I mean, actually, I'm existing, so like it is here, but I'm not engaging as much, at least not in the areas where I think that the big challenges they would come from. So there's that. But yeah, because today, as I mentioned, I went to therapy, and I think we had a really good session. We ended up arriving a little late because traffic was bad. Also, like it took a while because basically I asked for an Uber and I waited, and like a little while, it was like 3 minutes away, and then it took them 10 minutes. So like that also got in the way. So maybe I should start asking, because my session is like 9 a.m. So I went to that at 8:30. So maybe like 8:20, so that if this happens, like it doesn't really get in the way to arrive early. Although, yeah, I mean it's okay, like it's. But yeah, but the time that I did have was pretty productive. I have been writing down things lately about that I wanna talk about, and I think that's been very productive, because I think that is pretty much where I was lacking. The first sessions I had like so much to talk about, and I still have a lot to talk about, but like the topics were just like jumping out, and then right now like it's more stuff that I learned throughout like the week, and then I make an effort during the week to kind of like write it down, and then we can talk about it. And also it's interesting because it's a lot of like me talking. There's always been therapy for me. I talk a lot, and I've been told that I have like a lot of awareness for like what's going on in my brain. So like that hasn't changed, but so I don't know. It's just like me talking, and then it just raised the question. Okay, so like this is also me talking. So this is can I consider this to be therapy? And like do I have, because the thing in therapy is that I have to pay for it. And it's quite, I wouldn't say it's necessarily expensive. It is the price, for the service that is being provided. But that is, I've been having to kind of like adjust my finances to like, so I can accommodate my therapy. And I don't know. Like this is something that I feel like every once in a while it kind of like comes to me, like this idea. But then I always feel that I shouldn't be thinking this way, that I shouldn't say these things. So it is interesting for me to just this is part of like me being more honest with myself. So I do have these thoughts, and I don't really know how to do without them. And maybe I don't have to, because as I said, like questioning things is important. Naturally, you have to also trust yourself, because if you question something and if you come to a conclusion, just stick to that. Although like it's totally okay if you change your mind or circumstances they change, and therefore your answer is different. Not talking about that. I'm talking about just me, and you just. Yeah, just me questioning things. And as I said, like that is important, and I do feel like I can trust my judgment right now, which hasn't always been the case. Like I have at certain points like being too biased to actually for me to actually account the things that I was thinking. So I'm glad that like right now that is not really my reality, but it doesn't negate the fact that like that should be the case. And I think that there are some lessons that I can have from like those experiences. I think that that's ultimately like what I want to think of, like what can I learn from this? What was like not everything has to have a point, but it is interesting for you to just try to learn a lesson from things, because it does help you feel like things are worth your while, even if like they were wasted, like they were wasted opportunities or whatever, because you have to learn, which is why I've been throwing myself out there in some ways that I had never really done before. And I think that I'm kind of like benefiting from this whole ordeal, because even the things that don't work out, like I'm still there's still an opportunity there, like an opportunity can lead to an opportunity. So sometimes like the situation leading to like something like that in itself is an opportunity for you to learn something, for you to make an acquaintance, for you to enjoy yourself, for you to experience something, for you to realize something, for you to learn something. And I think that those are valuable as well. You shouldn't discount the lessons that you have from you shouldn't discount lessons you learn from like unconventional situations, because sometimes like I feel like the lessons you can learn, they're pretty straightforward, like you should already know that, but sometimes it takes you like doing it, the thing, like experiencing that situation on your own skin for you to actually learn. This is something that I kind of like, I used to relate to a lot, because I think it's a Bible verse that it says that intelligent man learns from his mistakes, and a wise man learns from somebody else's mistakes. So I wanted to be wise, but I kind of like I had to just be smart sometimes, just intelligent, because like I wasn't really learning my lessons from not wanting the things. I think it has to do with like experiences. I wanted more experiences. I wanted more things, and I was talking about this in interview today, that like I wanted more. I'd be very vague, because like, what do you mean, what more did you want? Because I didn't really have specifics. I just wanted to be doing things. I wanted to be kind of like out there. It didn't have to be anything big, anything significant. It could just be going out and having some fun. I don't know, I had like so many interesting situations when I was in high school, my senior year in high school, where I was more open to possibilities and to people, and I ended up having some very basic experiences of interaction, but like they stood out, like they they meant something to me, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It was not just going out to have lunch somewhere else, like that was in itself, kind of like a bit of an adventure. I know that like when I say this, probably seems like I don't do much, because what do you mean like going out for lunch is an adventure? But it was for me, because I was like so repressed, and I was suppressing so many things, and I had this very static version of what I wanted to be, and anything that kind of like threatened that was a bit of hustle for me to kind of like I had to rationalize everything, to contextualize like what was happening. I couldn't really escape that mode, so like I think like even like the enjoyment I had from like some of those interactions was something that was cut short, because in my head I was like, I can't succumb to this, like this cannot really be the thing. And I don't look back and regret necessarily my senior year or anything like that, because ultimately like I was able to be the person who I wanted to be. Naturally, the person who I wanted to be was like very trauma driven, like was very much like based on my trauma. Like if I had I mean, I did have therapy some of those years, just that I wasn't really ready to open up and to talk about things, but basically what I kind of like want, what I'm trying to say is that I don't regret doing the things they did. What I do regret is kind of like not doing more of that, not enjoying myself more, because it's interesting, because like I feel like there's such a block between me and other people, and me and interacting with people, that like today I wouldn't have, like today it would be pretty chill. I would go there and I would have my time, I would enjoy myself, and which was not really the case for like myself at the time. I really felt like I had one path to go, that I was going to go a certain way, and that everything else was going to be secondary to that. And things changed for me, and like those dreams never really came true. So looking back, it feels like I made a lot of effort for nothing. And I mean, it wasn't for nothing. It wasn't for nothing, but it also wasn't for something. I think I want to be on this very neutral, like standing point regarding some of those things, because it is what it is. Back to radical acceptance. I accept that is how I behaved, and that like I'm right now, like I'm in a different place, and I would have made different choices. And I think that because I wanted experiences, but I think the experiences I wanted when I was in high school, they were different from like once I had graduated high school and I was about to enter college, so start college. And I think that they're all valid. Like I think like every version of myself that has ever existed is valid. Like, and I understand why is that I had I felt the urge to be something at those different points in time. But it doesn't explain I mean, like, it explains. Like, I understand why I said I wanted to be the way that I was. But, like, now that I no longer have that trauma, I mean, I still have the trauma, but the trauma is no longer dragging me down and, you know, impacted my actions. I look back and I'm like, yeah, what was the point of that? You know, what was the point of avoiding all that? And it's interesting because sometimes things can be very contradictory. So, like, the person I wanted to be in high school is different from the person I wanted to be post high school. And, you know, sometimes the things that I wanted to avoid here, I wish I had done, you know. So, like, I wanted these experiences that I didn't have. I kind of like materialized them in my head in a certain way to kind of like make myself believe that some of those things had happened. So it's interesting because, you know, pretty much just shows that you change. So you have to be true to yourself ultimately, because you are going to change as a person, and, you know, you just have to be honest, and, you know, you shouldn't let, you know, your preconceptions and your biases and your traumas like modify the way that you behave. I think that's a pretty straightforward thing, but it's also like easier said than done. But, you know, just that when I look back, I'm like, so there are things that I didn't have an opportunity to kind of like partake in that later on, like, I wish I had, and then right now, many years later, I'm like, yeah, it's okay that I didn't partake here. It's okay that I was, because it felt like, you know, I did have an opportunity here, and then when later on, like, I no longer had those opportunities, you know, so I was kind of like stuck. And so yeah, so basically, like, both these versions are valid, but it doesn't make me, and it's okay, I accept them completely, like, this reality is, and what I wanted and what I didn't want and everything that was like, I accept that. But what has to happen, you know, like now on, from now on, is that I have to be kind of like in touch with myself, and pretty much why I've been so engaged in like having new experiences and trying new things, and, you know, like putting myself out there, because, you know, like 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and like maybe what I want it to be, what I want to be, like, it's going to be different from who I really am at that point, but like at least I'll have the solace of like, yes, I was doing things right here. So, you know, I was being honest to myself at this point in time. I think you have to be honest, you know, not honest, but like true to yourself, true to, you know, who you are. And sometimes like you don't really know who that is until like you've lived life and you have been able to, you know, test some things and, you know, be different things, you know, and it takes a little while until you get to the point where it's just like very genuinely yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, number one, but also, you know, like, so try to really be yourself, be in touch with who you are. And I think that like even if I do change from now on, like there's still some things that are going to remain, you know, constant, and I think I mentioned before, I definitely have that, like, now I'm 28 now, so like in 10 years, like when I'm 38, I want to look back at the past decade and feel like I did not waste my life, you know, I didn't waste time. I want, you know, to look back and have experiences, which is what I'm working towards like right now. And this is becoming a new era for me. It's a new stage of my life, and I'm happy with where I am at. I'm happy with like everything that is and isn't happening right now. I mean, I'm not necessarily happy about the things that aren't happening, because there's so much that I would, you know, like I would like to do, to be, but I have accepted that, you know, this is my fate, not in a, you know, like there's nothing else you can do, like much the contrary, like I accept where I am at, so I can change things to, you know, like so the future will be different. So yeah, I don't think there's any power, higher power that is kind of like orchestrating things behind the scenes, but there is still like power in habit. There's power in habit. So like if you kind of like you develop like this habit of, you know, like just being your authentic self, you get to a point where like it's kind of like fake it till you make it, right? Like you really try to, you know, implement this. At a certain point, like it just starts to happen naturally, and that is all that I want. I want, you know, to live my life and be happy with what I have, with where I am at, and, you know, so, and of course, like doesn't mean that I'm going to resign to, you know, my lot in life. Like, no, if there's something I want to work for it. I want to go out there and get it. So like this is still part of like my journey, but, you know, it is something to, you know, consider that before you can, because sometimes like before you can change your fate, your situation, you have to accept where you are at, because, you know, you need a realistic game plan. You have to know what you have to do, and also how you have to change to be able to do that, because, you know, as I mentioned before, I'm being kind of like, because there are always opportunities. Maybe the opportunities, they do not come in the shape or form that you want. They do not come, you know, like, you know, because you have vision, and what you have there in your life is not really like doesn't fit that vision, but it is still something. So sometimes, like, you know, you are going to have to get through this to get to something else. So like you need to walk through this first. Sometimes like that is not going to lead at all to the path you want, and that is also okay. Like you don't have, you know, because as I mentioned before, like a lot of times I want more experiences, and I'm very vague about this because, you know, I don't have necessarily clarity either of like what I want. I just want, to live life, which I know sounds very generic. And it's one of those things that can be dangerous because it can lead to you having some very drastic, measures. You're doing some very, dramatic things that maybe are not going to be they're not very sustainable. They're not going to, really help you on the long run. But you can kind of but yeah, but like I do trust myself right now to be balanced and to kind of like choose wisely. It's kind of like a nice way to put where I am, like choosing wisely. I can trust myself to do that in a way that I couldn't when I was younger. And there's nothing wrong with like not being able to trust yourself. I think that like it's very common for that to be the case. You just have to acknowledge that is the case and start working on top of that. But basically where I am at right now, I can trust myself like to choose things well and wisely, and I'm very happy that that's the case. Which is also something that comes with age. Like I don't think I could expect this level of cohesiveness in myself if I was 18. Like if I when I was 18, like I was not really ready for a lot of like the things that life is throwing at me right now. And that's nothing, as I said, like there's nothing wrong with or anything or bad about that. It's just part of living, and you have to live your life to learn. And life is something you learn by living. I think that it takes a certain amount of time, of existing for you to get to the point where you can be wise, like in the and kind of like learn from other people's mistakes. I think that when you're young, that's very hard to do, because even if you do succeed, I think that you kind of build some resentment towards like your younger self, because like those are your prime years, and what were you doing? Like even if you're just working, for example, like you might achieve things, but like you might have wasted your life, your time, not wasted, but like you may have squandered the opportunity of like doing more and just living life. As I said, like I'm living life, I'm not really doing it in a like self-destructive way. I'm not doing things that are going to harm my mental health. I'm not doing things that are going to lead to episodes, or if I did have episodes that will lead to like bad choices, bad permanent choices that I can make. So I'm okay with where I'm standing. And as I said, like the way I feel about like some of those years in my past, it's mostly like, okay, I this happened, I accept that this happened, and I want to I want in the future to no longer feel this way about the past. So I can change that, but I can change how I behave myself and what I do today to make sure that like later on that doesn't that I don't feel this way anymore. So I think that that's as best as much as you can do, and it's like the best thing for you. Just like, okay, so these things happen and I don't want to feel this way again, so I'm going to behave differently. I'm going to act accordingly so that I'm like not back from now I look back and I'm like satisfied with what I have. So for example, this past few weeks have been like, really good in terms of like me just being kind of like happy with the choices I'm making, and potentially being happy with where I am at like a decade from now, because that is one thing that it's kind of like relevant to say, is that like you're not a machine, so I'm not going to produce at that level every day. So it's okay for me to have distractions, but I have to be conscious about them, those distractions and what they are and what they represent to me. And I think that I'm at a point where I have been able to find balance. I'm like working towards my goals, but I'm also allowing myself to have some joy, giving myself grace to have some joy every day with like silly little things that maybe are like a decade from now I'm not going to remember them because they're not particularly relevant in the current context of my life, but they were relevant today and they do bring me joy. Also, I do think it's valid for you to question what exactly brings you joy and what the different types of joy there are, because I think that there's some joy from contentment, from fulfillment. So it's a joy from like you kind of like concluding something from you just being able to kind of like go through something and finishing it. There's also the joy of like sometimes things are just pure pleasure. I think food is a good example because it is the end and the means in itself. Food, like it is true food that you're going to have joy, and in itself, like it is bringing you joy. And naturally, if there's some like build up, you can lead up to something. So like you might go to a certain restaurant that's kind of like expensive and right, so you have to save money and it takes time for you to get reservations. So like there is like a long-term thing there, but most of what I'm thinking about is like just little joys every day. It could be the joy of like laughing, so the joy of like consuming something funny and enjoyable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, as I said, like with some mindless entertainment every never smile. But yeah, balance is the key. I think for everything I'm saying is balance. So like me being able to trust myself, it has happened because I've been able to find balance in my life. Me being able to accept myself comes from me kind of like finding balance, balance between kind of like, you know, like loving myself and, you know, accepting and just like embracing things, but also of not really liking certain parts of me, and, you know, like just regretting certain things. So like there's a healthy in between, and that is pretty much where I am at. So I think that's that for today. So like the future is ahead of me, and I'm excited, and I think that I can accomplish things. I'm not stuck. I don't have to be stuck. And if I ever find myself to be stuck, like there's always something you can do. Maybe it take time, it take effort, it take money, it take whatever. But, you know, like it's not a lost game. It's not a lost cause. Anyways, bye.